Emma. We're coming in at the last minute, right, when this event was just about to go. Right, it was coming to a stage where I was totally in the middle of thinking of, packing up and giving up the idea of being here today. So thank you, Emma. I'd also like to thank Mike, wherever he's gone. He came in at the last minute as well. Agreed to do the filming at the last minute, free of charge. So thank you, Mike. And also, I'd like to thank all the people that are back at home that couldn't make it today. Coming in at the last minute again and helping me make all this together. Right, anyway, as many of you know, I've created this event because there is a strong feeling that the people who voted Remain, are being ignored by the UK government. A government which is hell-bent on sending the United Kingdom over a cliff edge. This event and the group that has been created is about one thing and one thing only, and that is to protect our residency and human rights of EU citizens living in the UK and the UK citizens living in Europe. The European Union is not just a trading bloc and shouldn't be treated as such. The European Union is more than that. The European dream was formed out of the ashes and destruction of the wars that devastated this continent. It was designed to unite neighbours, bring down barriers, and to ensure that the economic and political unity would secure peace and prosperity throughout Europe. Everybody knows by now that on the 23rd of June 2016, the United Kingdom held a referendum regarding EU membership. The Leave campaign was not only based on lies and deceit, but there were only two options available on the ballot paper, and those options were whether we should remain in the EU or leave. Nowhere did it mention details about leaving the single market, seizing freedom of movement, and nothing about the hard Brexit or walking away with no deal, with a no deal that the current government seems to be intent on doing. The Leave campaign message regarding these tiny details was confusing and contradictory. At its heart, citizenship is the right to live and belong in a country and enjoy the protection of its laws in the EU. It gives right to move to remain in the other EU states and so without a deal protect citizenship, right Brexit with the democratic movement for the 3 million people from the other EU members currently in the UK, and for the near 1 million citizens who have made the opposite trip. Work and family lives have been constructed around these rights and how they are in flux. As UK lawmakers tussle over the rights of EU citizens and the European Parliament lead Brexit negotiator, Clive Musgrove has noted the concept of associated EU citizenship for UK nationals. This would give the option of paying a fee to retain EU citizenship and some rights. Guy has also said Parliament would block any Brexit deal that failed to offer adequate protection for the EU nationals in the UK and Britain in Europe. Citizens' rights would be a crucial factor in determining whether Parliament gave its consent he said, we will never give consent if the issue of citizen rights on both sides has not been dealt with in satisfactory way. But guides will not be at the negotiating table, and some EU governments are lukewarm or spectacle about this proposal. In the middle of the particular ping pong, of course, are real people and families living real lives and now look like fragile and unpredictable sectors may be reinterpreted or even bought and sold, but comfort and security would offer a more valuable commodity. So summing up, I ask you all, is it right for the wishes of the people voting Remain to be ignored?
No!
Was it right that British citizens were not allowed to vote in the referendum because they have been away from the UK for more than 15 years?
No!
Was it right for the EU citizens living in the UK and paying taxes to be denied a vote?
No!
Was it right for the 16, 17-year-olds, the people that Brexit will affect the most, were denied a vote?
No!
Was it right for our rights to be taken away based on advisory referendum?
No!
I would clearly say to you all that it is not right, and now it is time to fight to protect our rights. Now is the time to make a stand, continue the fight, and show the world our politicians that voted Remain are standing shoulder to shoulder with our EU brothers and sisters to prevent us losing the rights that we have cherished for over 40 years. But to do this, to achieve our aim, we need to continue support the foreign countries within the EU that our rights are protected wherever we reside. Now is the time our government that will not stand for us and be ignored. We will we need all of us to feel some pressure on our elected representatives to make sure they are aware of the
Well said, sir.
No, it's Simon!
Emma?
we're not reading out.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just standing here waving the damn thing. That's all I'm doing.
C'est toi! Summit, well done!
Okay, give it a hash over the line! Exactly. 10 minutes.
Allez!
It's a Fiskema! A Knut Vulture!
I like the idea of combining flags.
A Knut Vulture down in Brussels. En Stjärna Hjort, du Ulle Ersson, Tain Asho Adu, Ukraine and Janot Yorpa. Good afternoon and 100,000 welcomes to Brussels. Thank you for coming here today to the heart of our European Union. Merci beaucoup à nos amis, aux gens et la ville de Bruxelles, de rendre ce environnement possible aujourd'hui. Nous venons ici à cœur de notre Union européenne pour célébrer les choses que nous partageons en commun et réunir nos nations. Merci beaucoup. Many thanks to our friends and the people in the city of Brussels for helping to make this event possible today. We've come here to the heart of our European Union to celebrate the things that we share in common and the things that bring our nations together. Je wil gaan starten. Ik heb mijn heemlandspook. Met een landspook som jeg er privilegeret at kalde mijn andet hjem. Min familj var på en resa till Danmark, startade sig från en fussel. Det var långt till sig. Så min föräldrar var i Boys Brigade och Girls Brigade. Och i kölvattnet på Storbritannien tillträdde det europeiska ekonomiska fällskap kunde bestå medlemmar av FDF och FDF i Fredriksberg i København. Då jag blev född sände våra vänner i Fredriksberg mig en gav av en dagsplats skrivet på dansk och så blev det skett en ny generation av förläggare på tvärs av vår förening.
Yes.
Nederlands.
Mitt första besök i Danmark var till Aarhus. Och vad vi fortsatte med att få kontakten med de vänner. Vi lärde för länge sedan. Sedan har jag bott, arbetat och studerat i Danmark. Våra vänner från min första besök är nu som en annan familj för mig. Faktiskt ligger nu. Min föräldrar är i Aarhus i Danmark firar min danska mors halvträdsårets födelsedag. So, I'd like to start not in the language of my homeland, but in the language of the land that I'm privileged to call a second home. My family's connections to Denmark started even before my birth, which was a wee while ago. My parents were in the Boys Brigade and Girls Brigade. In the wake of Britain joining what was then the European Economic Community, they were able to visit members of the FDF and FPF in Frederiksberg compound. So when I was born, our friends in Frederiksberg sent me a gift, and it was a christening plate, written in Danish, and so a new generation of links across our countries was created. So my first visit to Denmark was to Aarhus, and my family continued to stay in contact with friends that we made such a long time ago. Since then we have lived, worked and studied in Denmark, and our friends from my first visit, they're now like a second family to me. In fact, right now my parents are over in Denmark in Aarhus celebrating my Danish mother's 50th anniversary. Så min ønske er, at hvis jeg har børn, og for alle vores børn at fortsætte med at have de oplevelser og muligheder, jeg har haft. Jeg håber, at kærlighed og mennesker fortsætter med at overskride de nationale grænser og af europæens befolkning.
Jeg vil gerne.
I det forening Kongerik og befolkning i vores europæiske union ikke undergrave frygt eller overhav af islamstisk nationalism. My wish is that if I ever have children, and for all our children to continue to have the experience and opportunities that I've had. My hope is that the love and friendship continues to transcend national borders, and that the people of Europe, especially in the United Kingdom, and the people of our European Union do not succumb to the fear and hatred of isolationist nationalism. I came here today not just as a Scottish person raging against democratic deficit, and I know I'm the oldest Scottish person.
Are you with you?
Yeah, William Wallace.
It's alright, we're all joining you soon.
Yeah. You're all welcome. Everybody's welcome in Scotland. But we have this democratic deficit highlighted by our government that ignores the fact that Scotland voted overwhelmingly in favour of remaining a part of the European Union. But also, as a citizen of Europe who values the friendships and opportunities that cooperation across all our nations presents to us. The impact of Brexit goes far beyond economic and political issues.
Absolutely.
It deeply affects the fabric of our society.
Yes.
It affects the very soul of our nation.
Yes.
Brexit raises questions about our personal relationships, about our friends and about our families. We've already seen examples of European citizens being threatened with deportation from the UK and being split from their families in violation of the UK's responsibilities under the European Convention on Human Rights and other treaties. In the wake of Brexit, we've seen a rise in hate crimes, with European citizens being attacked and in some cases even murdered on the streets of the UK for no reason other than the language they speak and their nationality. In the past, people might have kept their prejudices and fears to themselves, but the rise in right-wing nationalism, Brexit, seems to have legitimised views which would previously have been considered extremist, right-wing, loony fringe. And the policies of our government have emboldened those who would turn to violence and hate to express their fears and hatreds. This is not the UK that we wish to live in. This is not the world we wish to live in. The European Union has brought together the nations and the people of Europe in an unprecedented period of peace and stability in our continent. The social problems we see in the wake of Brexit should serve as a warning against the rise of right-wing nationalism across the whole of the EU. In the last year, we've seen narrow victories against nationalism in Austria, in France, and also in the Netherlands, but we shouldn't be complacent. The popularity of nationalistic policies should be a concern to everybody in Europe. For many people who voted against Brexit, it was a bit of a protest vote against the policies of austerity. It was a vote against the need for food banks in one of the wealthiest nations in the world. And it was a vote against the perceived threat of others and a vote against insecurity and fear. We are here today to highlight the need for both the UK government and the European Union to put the welfare, needs and rights of all EU citizens, including UK citizens, at the heart of the Brexit negotiations. In an ideal world, we would like to see the folly of the whole Brexit process stopped. But in a less than ideal world, we must put people of all nationalities first, ahead of whatever political games our politicians want to play at our expense. I could have spoken today about the drastic fall in EU student applications to UK universities, which has had a detrimental effect on the budgets on some of our higher education institutions. Aberystwyth University in Wales has already seen over 100 EU applications withdrawn since Brexit. I could have spoken about British academics being excluded from European research projects, or a brain drain from the UK as ever harsher immigration requirements force low-paid academics to leave the country. I could have spoken about the disastrous impact on our economy, the collapse of the value of the pound against the euro, and the loss of jobs as companies prepare to move to other EU nations to access the single market. But for me, the most important effect of Brexit is the personal effects. It's the human cost of rising nationalism and the worries for people who have made a home away from their homeland. I'm concerned about the disdain and the disregard that our politicians show against people who have made positive contributions to our nation and our society. I'll finish by going back to where I started, my parents being in Denmark celebrating the birthday with my adopted family. I've got many British friends who have married people from other EU nations. What possible Brexit bring to them? I hope that today, right here, right now, here in Brussels, the heart of our European Union, we can highlight the love and the friendships that we share across all our precious union. And we ask that our governments and the various institutions put the people of Europe first and foremost in the upcoming negotiations. Thank you very much.
Great speech.
Thank you, Chair Colleen.
Do you want to put this back to where it was before? Thank you very much for that. Bonjour tout le monde!
Hello.
My name's Gemma Knowles. I'm here representing the 48 and Beyond. And if you're a member of the 48 Beyond, and if you've heard of it, please give a loud cheer for the moderators who have given up their time for almost a year now.
Hooray!
It was started a year ago. EP Ward started it for some friends. He didn't realise he had 60,300 friends and counting. The 48% are not affiliated to any greater national movement. In fact, we are a national movement. And it is a place for people like us to come together to share our hopes, to share our fears, to find out information, and to have their partisan posts turned off by moderators like myself.
Hooray!
Good Mom.
But it's more important than that. It's a place where campaigns get pushed through, where petitions find support, where people like Samit can bring their ideas and get support from the rest of the group. We have done so many things this year. We have over 650 local groups. See how I've been staying in. We have had about 5 marches up and down Britain. We've had 3 in London, one with 100,000 people in attendance. They were in Newcastle, they were in Edinburgh. We have been brilliant. We have lobbied the Houses of Parliament through the organisation called Represent Us. We have our own mildly subversive fringe called the EU Flag Mafia, who made flag bombing a thing. They gate crashed the BBC One show.
Such a fine woman.
Twice. And if the BBC won't come to us, we will go to them. And on top of that, and thanks to Summit, and thanks to the team behind him, Emma, Mike, Yvonne, and the thousands of other people who can't be here today, we have come to Brussels to tell people here, to tell the Europeans here, to tell our brothers and sisters, including you over there, thank you. We are here to stay and we are not going to go away. And this isn't even an exhaustive list of all the things we have done, but what is important about this? They have been done by ordinary people, people like you, people like me, not the rich, not the elite, not the famous, and not politicians. If Brexit has taught us one thing, if you want to do something properly, Sammy, you've got to do it yourself. You can't leave it to the politicians. Leave did win the referendum.
Only for the misinformation.
I was getting to that. They only did it because they excluded 5 million people from voting. 2 million people like me who are expats who have been out of England for more than 15 years. 3 million EU expats in England who should have taken a lesson from no taxation without representation. They're paying tax. They have a right to defend their lifestyle. Thank you. Okay, and where am I? Brussels. Going well. Brussels is going well, that's good to know. Okay. And they could only sell it with lies on the side of a bus. They may have won the referendum, ladies and gentlemen, but they spectacularly lost the debate. Woo! Have you met one leaver who can give you a positive and workable vision of the future for the UK outside the EU?
Not one.
No.
Straight bananas.
Straight bananas.
Question time.
Can they give you a valid reason for leaving all of this? This is not just a project. The EU in its various forms has been delivering on its purpose for 72 years. No wars between the member states. And that is the end. It has also brought continuing prosperity to all of the member states. And this is what the English do not get. The point is not the prosperity, the point is the peace. And every single member state is better off now than it was when it joined. Germany, England, and yes, even Greece.
It's true.
And the other thing is, how many people on this planet can say that they have 2 citizenships protecting their rights? That, my ladies and gentlemen, is a privilege. And we should not be giving it up so lightly.
We're not going to.
We are here because the face of the UK is one that many of us know is bad. Brexit is bad. We are here. Because the face of the UK is one that we no longer recognise, and because it is going off the rails. The majority of our press incites hatred towards anyone who does not agree with their narrow definition of jingoistic nationalism. Our politicians pander to hate with their policies that drive division further into our society. The failed policy of austerity, ladies and gentlemen. Our country, and this is down to our government and not to the EU, is 1.5 trillion in debt. The value of wages has declined by 10.5% since 2007. We are level pegging with Greece. Jeremy Corbyn may or may not be taking us back to the 70s. Brexit is taking us back to the 1930s, and our economy is heading off into the mists of Dickensian England.
All true.
Yep.
The UK has problems. It has valid problems, but the punch it swung on the 23rd of June 2016 was misdirected. Instead of hitting the EU, we should have hit the Conservative government. And even if 650 seats go to the Tories, the UK is still only one country facing a Europe which has never been, are you ready for this, stronger, more stable, or more united. And despite predictions of Leave and the wishful thinking of Farage, exactly, the EU is far from falling apart. Austria, the Netherlands, France, all stated at the ballot box that a departure from the EU is not for them after looking at the madness that has taken hold of only 27% of the UK population. The 48 and beyond is a growing movement, and as the clouds grow darker, the UK will need us to keep the light shining, and this is the home straight, ladies and gentlemen. So what are our challenges for the future? We need to speak out. We need to make sure that those who have honoured our country by choosing the UK as their home, husbands and wives, daughters and sons-in-laws, neighbours, friends and colleagues, we need to let them know that they are part of what makes the UK what the UK is: vibrant, innovative and international. We need to make sure that over the coming months and years, the blame for the debacle that is coming towards the UK as surely as the Titanic met that iceberg, we need to make sure that we lay the blame for that squarely at the feet of the press, the pundits and the politicians who deceived the public. May, Farage, Cameron, Dacre, the Daily Mail, all of those, you know them. We need to remind our fellow Europeans that the other UK, the open, pragmatic, humorous and humane, progressive and positive UK is still there, and that we want to be a driving force in this union. There is so much we can do together for the world. And the final thing we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, we need to educate and inform. We need to be ambassadors for the EU, to make sure that people know the history of this place, that it was created to ensure peace, prosperity, progress, that while it may not be perfect, it is good, and it is the best we have.
Yeah.
Like any country, the UK has its demons to deal with, and we will deal with those demons. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are Europeans, we are Brits, and we are patriots, and we will get our country back on track.
This an ode to joy and hope. As a southern user, joy is in the fact that I've actually had, despite the hour-and-a-half delay, an easier and quicker journey travelling here today, with proper announcements in 3 different languages, water on tap, okay the beer ran out, but quicker and easier than I've sometimes had in the last few years travelling from London to my own home on the south coast. Joy that I can be here today with so many of my fellow countrymen and women and fellow citizens of Europe. Here in the heart of Europe. Woo! Joy in the fact that in this very democratic week at home, we can come together, I'll outshout you, to share with you the values of Europe, our democratic rights, our shared cultures. Merci mesdames et messieurs pour le bienvenue ici ce soir. Je suis anglais. Merci Sylvie, ma français professeur et mes enfants professeurs dans ma ville école pour 30 ans. Merci le homme pour ma sœur et la sœur pour ma homme. Tante jeune en France et maman, ma première professeure. Je suis anglais. Nous sommes européens. Pouvez rappeler, nous sommes européens. Nous sommes European.
Nu sommes European.
Hartelijk dank wel voor de welkom hier vanavond. Het is mooi weer, denk ik. Ik vertel ik ben Engels. Mijn papa, alles is klaar, ik wil niet zingen, heb voor 25 jaar in de Nederlands gewonnen. Werken en thuis. Ik kom uit het Verenigd Koninkrijk. Ja, jij hebt gehoord dat ik praat Brits. Ik weet het hier is niet samen, altijd, maar jij kunt verstaan, wij zijn ook European. Können wir das aus Brief herhalen? Wir sind auch European.
Wir sind auch Europäer.
Here in the heart of Europe since 1974, my families, my friends, my fellow citizens have been able to take up the opportunities to travel, to live, be educated. Yeah, ik was in Kleuterschool, and our families have worked across Europe. Some of them, like you, have founded families in Europe. We are and will remain European. Woo! Europe was founded on hope. Hope for a continuing peace. Hope for greater cooperation and hope for justice. Like many of you, I was heartbroken the 24th of June last year when I discovered a small minority of our own countrymen and women had turned their backs on Europe. Turned their backs on greater trade, cooperation, our very own human rights, and more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, peace. As the great AC Grayling states, it was just, I've got 37%. 37%, 37% of the whole electorate eligible to vote who voted to leave. Yet we still had hope. It was just an advisory referendum. That hope came from so many directions. Many of us came together on social media. The 48% group were born. Écoutez pour le 48% s'il vous plaît. Reste pour the 48% alsjeblieft. Although we know we are far more and far many than 48%. We have founded pro-local European groups. Regardez, K-Cop, look, I wear the t-shirt. This is the dark bit. Some of us believed that when our new Prime Minister came to power as a campaigning pro-European Home Secretary, she would see that this was just an advisory referendum. How wrong we were. That Scar download is very good. K-Cop, hashtag Scar danku. Écoutez, hashtag Scar merci. Some of us believe that our own legal system, you know the one, founded on Magna Carta, whose very essence has travelled the world to so many countries and is at the foundations of justice in Europe and the European Courts of Human Rights. Thank you, Gina Miller, and the many. Thank you to the Supreme Court Justice that tried to uphold our rights. Yet, it was the mother of all parliaments who once again dashed our hopes. It was not the will of the people. It never was the will of the people. So many were disenfranchised. Students away from their regular voting area. 16 to 18-year-olds whose very futures were debating. And so many of our fellow European citizens whose very lives it would affect the most at home and British citizens overseas were disenfranchised. We are heartbroken at the hate during and following the campaign. We must remember. We will not forget. I will not forget that a democratically elected member of our parliament was shot in a quiet Yorkshire village, close to the statue of the Queen, the great English scientist Joseph Priestley, who discovered oxygen in our green and pleasant land. We will not forget the vitriol and abuse that so many of our European friends and neighbours have faced since the referendum in our hometowns and counties up and down our country. I personally will not forget that a fellow European citizen was killed in my birth town in Essex, simply for being of a different nationality. If you knew my family history, you would understand the pressure doesn't quite cut it, but I am very truly sorry. We are all heartbroken at the hate. We are heartbroken that our freedoms, prosperity and rights are now to be negotiated like bargaining chips. For what and why? Heartbroken that our great intercontinental trade, education, scientific research initiatives may be unable to continue. Heartbroken that the peace, human rights and freedoms our forefathers fought for are to be denied to our future generations who may not be able to live, work, travel, be educated and found families as we have done throughout this great continent.
Disgrace.
We have come together. We have marched in London and now we've come together in Brussels. We've written to our democratic elected leaders here and at home. We are grateful to the political leaders here. Guy Verhofstadt, danke wel meneer. Charles Gorens, merci dankeschön. Our very own Catherine Bearder, Seb Dance, Richard Corbett and all the members of the European Parliament across the country and across the continent who support us. The many lords and ladies in our second chamber And we must also not forget the few. Ken Clark, Tim Farron, Nick Clegg, Alcomini and Dankerveld, David Lammy, Stella Creasy. I can't name them all from the Lib Dems of Labour, but Hansard has their names recorded. All the members of Parliament in Westminster from the Scottish National Party, thank you. Slide Cymru. Hoping Jonas going to be alright with this when I say Diolch yn fawr. The Social Democratic Labour Party from Northern Ireland, we thank you. And of course our Green MP from Brighton, Caroline Lucas, for voicing our views. As we say in Sussex, we won't be drugged. We are still passionate about peace, prosperity and greater cooperation. We are still passionate about human rights, passionate about truth and justice before the law, mindful of our shared past and passionate about future citizens' rights. My fellow European citizens, we have not all turned our backs. Please remember us. Some of our nation's mainstream media will not always highlight us, yet we are still here, the 48%, the 48 to 48. We are from every generation, we are from every part of the United Kingdom, we are of every gender, creed, race and religion, able-bodied and impaired. We have many different political persuasions. We are and we will remain in our hearts and minds, fellow European citizens, forever. Remember us. We still have hope. To those of my fellow citizens eligible to vote, I say go. Do your duty. Please remember our disenfranchised fellow citizens of Europe at home and those of our compatriots within Europe denied the vote. Use your vote tactically. Use your vote. Vote for Europe. Merci beaucoup. Dank u wel. Diolch yn fawr. Obrigada. Thank you very much.
And women. I'm here representing the older generation. Woo! Those thousands of us who did vote today. Yep. Because, make no mistake, we're not all ignorant, not all gullible, not all little ignorant, or you. When I was a child, 4 years ago than I can remember, I dreamed of a world united, everyone working for common good. I still have that dream. Though sometimes I feel like another European. I'm trying to stop the tide going up instead of coming in. So look, that's an interesting thing. Our very own King of all England is a Dane. Not even born in England, but we claim it as our own. What did the Brexiteers, old, young and middle-aged folks, English laddie? What are they? The monarchy? In fact, our very British monarchy boasts very few all British kings or queens. William of Normandy, the first king to rule over all England, his five kingdoms in France, was also descended from Northmen. France was a great breeding ground and educator of many of them. We mustn't forget the Netherlands, William of Orange, King Anne, and of course Victoria's consorts, Albert Saxe-Coburg's daughter, who gave us so many of our wonderful English customs, like English Christmas tree. Queen Victoria's mother was German too, in case you didn't know. How about our language then? But English has become the world's lingua franca. We aren't losing it because of the internet. The World Wide Web, we've gained a whole world of English speakers. English, I was told, is the Saharan oasis, is the language of knowledge. We're not going to lose that. Well, how about our Christian faith? Not when shops open every Sunday. When people in the street don't know what Good Friday stands for. When I think Easter is all about bunny rabbits. Christmas is all about Santa Claus, good Dutch name. Taking back control? When did we ever lose it? At least as far as the EU is concerned. Do we or do we not elect our European MPs?
We do.
Just as we elect our Westminster MPs. But are they as accountable? Yes, and more so. Every law passed by the EU has its counterpart in Westminster. In fact, the EU does a great job of ensuring we enforce our own laws. I remember back in the 1980s,
the women had to take their case to the pay petition to the European Court before we could get the British courts to enforce an act already passed in Britain. In my youth, Great Britain was a world power. More than 50% of my old school actions covered pink of the British Empire. We learned what a great world that was. How good so much of it was, so much of the world fell in line with our values. The younger generation lost that love of superiority as well. They're learning a different, more accurate version of the history of the talk. Also, because so much of what we were taught was lies. And the truth, however unpunishable it may be, the only way forward, the only way to progress. But now, from being the people who inhabited and raped much of the developing world, we have become a country which must accept orphan children of those whose lands were civilized. The older, my generation, is scared. They see our power being eroded, our masters being mocked. They're no longer the only people who are shown trying to secure the right of overlook to break the virgin lands. So should we feel sorry for the older generation of refugees? I can't, and nor can many of my friends. My 80-year-old next-door neighbour, an Irish boy offered to vote out, told forth for 20 minutes on how they're going to get her out of the country and the box, when I suggested that she'd never bothered to apply for a passport, she had to say goodbye to me. Then the next week, she declared her satisfaction with the refugees that they turned away from our schools. She hasn't been welcomed in my house since, she wonders why. How about the positives of staying in the room? I don't need to tell you that. You're here because you already know and love the freedom of movement that our membership offers. The reciprocal health care in other countries far outstrip our fairly national laws. The safeguards for the weak and vulnerable afforded by various well-thought-out EU legislation. The free trade market. I could go on and on for those and other reasons. For those and other reasons I stand here today declaring myself a citizen of the world, a citizen of Europe, in heart, in mind, in soul, in every breath I take. Those of you who are with me, go home and vote. Let's oust the Tories at the ballot box next Thursday. Vote for a fairer Britain, end to Brexit. Vote tactically if you can. But if you can't vote for a particular party, let any vote against or it will not. If you're a lapsed Labour voter and need a reason to return, here's mine. After a lifetime of being the floatingest of floating voters, who all too often went to the ballot box not knowing where I was going to put my trust, I joined the party. Because their manifesto, while acknowledging the democratic decision, makes it almost impossible for us to leave. We will remain by default. Go and read it the way for it. But whatever you decide, go and vote. You made it to Brussels. Next Thursday, head for your polling station. Vote early, vote often. Don't stop that last. It may matter who you vote for, but in the last analysis, a vote against Brexit is what matters most. Let's oust the Tories. Let's vote for a fairer Britain. Let's vote for an end to Brexit by whatever means possible. Can we do it?
Yes, we can!
Can we do it?
Yes, we can!
And let June be the end of May.
Thank you for coming. My name is Phil Jones, and I just want to tell you my personal story. When I was 6 years old, I was brought up on an Air Force base in Germany called RAF Brüggen. My father was a pilot in the Air Force, and he flew the Canberra nuclear bomber. And what I didn't know when I was 6 years old was that he used to pat the bombs while they were being loaded into the aircraft as if they were friends. I was 6 years old, I had no idea what RAF Brüggen was really for. To me, it was a giant play park. I'm
that, I had to go to boarding school. And so did my older brother and sister. So, because I had to go to boarding school, that's part of what made me like I am today. So, I feel that European politics has completely shaped my entire life. And not only this, I never knew my grandfather. I never knew my grandfather because he died after the war. He was on the convoy to Malta and he died after the war of wounds. My mother was very young at the time. She can remember his presence, but she can't remember his face. That means I have a grandfather that I never knew. And on my father's side of the family, there is another of my relatives buried in a military cemetery for the First World War. And he is remembered in a military cemetery in France. So that's why it breaks my heart to hear people say that they don't feel that they're European.
Well said.
And some of the best speeches that were heard after the referendum were the tremendous speeches were heard in the House of Commons and the House of Lords, even though the government had to be dragged into the House of Commons in order for there to be a debate and a second hearing in the House of Lords. Some of the best speeches were here in Brussels and in Strasbourg, and they were barely reported in the British media.
True.
They deserve a hearing, and so I'm going to say some of the things that they said now. Guy Verhofstadt said of the Leave campaign, he said, what is so hard for me is the way that it succeeded. The absolutely negative campaign. The posters showing refugees like in propaganda. He said, I can hardly believe that a man in this house would do a thing like that. Manfred Weber, MEP, is the leader of the European People's Party, the EPP. He said, our message today to the young people of Britain is you can continue to trust in your friends in Europe. We don't leave you on your own. Janine Hennis-Plaschaert, who is not a politician, she is an official. She said that no nation on earth can isolate itself from a world in turmoil, nor Europe as a whole. We have to stick together. We have to face these challenges together as best we can. And Jean-Claude Juncker, speaking as a representative of the European Union and not as a politician, he said, when he was asked in the YouTube interview, why Europe? He said, firstly, because my father had to be a soldier in both world wars. And secondly, because the power of Asia and indeed Africa is rising and Europe's declining. Yep. So to cope with this, the countries in Europe need to work together. And the President of the European Council, his name is going to be right now, but he said that that Europe is more than a market. Europe is about shared values, and it is about the willingness to live together. That is what it is about. Now I turn, not for myself, but to the next generation. My eldest step-granddaughter. She is now 11 years old. She is just a child. She is too young to understand what is happening. The other 27 countries that we consider to be our brothers, they have children who are 11 years old. They have the benefits of being in the European Union. They will be taught the names of the institutions of the European Union, the European Council, the Council of Ministers, the European Parliament. these things haven't been taught in Britain for 40 years. These are the things we should know about. Things like the European Court of Auditors should be a household name. We should know about these things.
Right.
Because we have neglected these things for 40 years. That is why we're in a mess. And now we're paying the price for it. We're paying a price for it, literally. We're paying because the pound is at its lowest level since 1985. We're paying it because nurses are leaving our hospitals. Because teachers are leaving our schools. Because companies are leaving London, setting up in banks are setting up in Dublin instead. Now we are paying the price. We're paying a price literally. We're paying a price in money. We're paying a price in our prestige. We're paying a price in our reputation. And I say no!